Good morning or good day, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mark Larson. Today we're going to compare Georgia and Turkey. Now, why? A lot of people today who move to Georgia or who are about to move to Georgia, they consider other options as well. And Georgia, however beautiful the country is, they are introducing new regulations. For example, you need to have a work permit right now if you want to work here. It's a very slight change, but a lot of people start to think about other options. So today we're going to compare head to head Turkey and Georgia and see which option is better. I'll tell you right away, please use time codes in the video if you want to hear about the specific section. But in some ways, Georgia is much better than Turkey, and there are certain ways in which Turkey leads big time over Georgia. So let's get to it. Entry and stay duration. Well, Georgia here gives you a whole year on the entrance. Well, it's actually 90 countries of the world. It's not to every single person. For example, I do have a client on relocation from Congo. For him, it's actually he needs a visa. So he can't even come to Georgia because for him, we organize in a different way. It's a bit more complicated. He's also bringing his American company because he works and lives in America. He brings the company to Georgia. It's a bit more complicated, but for you, most likely it is going to be a whole year. This is crazy. I don't know a second place in the world which will give you such preferences. Turkey, on the other hand, gives you about 90 days over 180-day period, meaning you cannot do visa runs. Every half a year, you can spend only 90 days in Turkey. So you will need to find a way to legalize yourself. Okay, 90 days is enough to do that, but again, a whole year in Georgia gives way more room to breathe, so to speak. Okay, let's move on. Two main cities. Tbilisi is the capital of Georgia, and Istanbul obviously is the capital of Turkey. Chances are you have been to Istanbul before. Today, it's the most well-connected city in the entire world. You have so many flights with Turkish Airlines and other airlines as well coming in and from Istanbul. Now, one of the reasons in 2022, this situation between Russia and Ukraine, most Russian flights are coming from Istanbul. So if you want to go to a Russian city, you have to fly through Istanbul. Before, number one was Dubai, number two, Qatar. Today, they're still kind of there, but Turkey is leading the way for sure. And by the way, I do think it's a huge advantage if you love traveling, if it's an important factor for you, you'll have less flights from Tbilisi. Look, there's three main cities in Georgia. Batumi, it's where I am right now. Kutaisi, it's a very small city, but it's well connected in terms of low-costers. Like Wizz Air, for example, is flying from Kutaisi. Tbilisi is the capital, has the most amount of flights, but still it's nowhere near close to Istanbul, obviously. So size-wise, they are absolutely uncomparable, to be honest. Istanbul is a mega city. It's ultra city. It has 15 plus million population. It's huge. It's easy to lose yourself there. Some people love it. Maybe you want to be lost in the city. You have your privacy in a way that is so many people don't care about you, that kind of thing. Me personally, I get overwhelmed. In Istanbul, for me, it's way too much. Tbilisi, the capital of Georgia, is way smaller. I would say at least 10 times, if not more, smaller. It's situated right, along the river between the mountains. It's very nice and cozy. It's not small by any means. I would not call it small at all. But for me, I can get everything I want in Tbilisi. So for me, that's a clear winner. By the way, price-wise, there's a little difference here. Tbilisi is about 20% cheaper, yes, than Istanbul, surprisingly. Well, we're going to be talking about prices in a bit. For now, let's continue. Let's actually compare the coastal cities. Batumi in Georgia, it's the west of Georgia, you could say, and the south of Turkey, meaning Alanya, Antalya, Kemer. There's a lot of cities, Marmaris, Turunç, one of my favorites. If you know, you know. But there's a whole bunch of cities in the south of Turkey where people actually also live and stay and buy property and buy resorts and operate them. So there's a lot of business going on there for sure, but it's a different kind of vibe. First, you need to keep in mind there's way more tourist volume in Turkey. It's uncomparable to Georgia. Georgia is still a very small place, it's growing, and it's trying to win over Turkey in terms of easiness of doing business, low taxes for your business, and so on. So it's more of a quality over quantity kind of thing. And Turkey is actually very high quality, don't get me wrong, but they do have a very, very high volume, okay? Something to keep in mind, absolutely. All right, so speaking of cost of living, let's put it this way. I told you that Tbilisi is cheaper about 20% than Istanbul. Batumi is 20% cheaper than Tbilisi. So if you are not looking for employment, if you don't have to be in a big city, if you don't plan to start a business which relies on a big city, then definitely Batumi wins big time. Climate-wise, Batumi is warmer and more humid. For me, it's good because my blood pressure lowers while I'm in between. I don't know why, but it just does. Normally, I have an elevated blood pressure, so for me, it's very beneficial to be specifically in between. South of Turkey is more dry, so to speak, so that's just something you need to keep in mind. There is one interesting quirk which is important to mention about Turkey: phones. Yeah, they have a phone tax. Tell me honestly in the comments, have you ever heard about a freaking phone tax before? Like, yeah, like buying a car, you pay a tax. In Turkey, when you even bring your own phone to Turkey, if you want to keep using it on local networks, you need to pay a tax, which is very high, and it can be about 2/3 of your price of your phone. So if you have an iPhone, $1,000 approximately, you pay $700 as the tax. And keep in mind, iPhone prices are a bit different in Turkey. You will be not so pleasantly surprised once you actually see them. This is weird. My suggestion here is to use eSIM service like Sale. I'll put a link down below and the video. You can get $5 off on that. Actually, I'm not trying to advertise them, but it's pretty much the only way not to pay the tax if you plan to stay or live in Turkey, which is ridiculous, but it is what it is. If I was living in Turkey, I would not be trying to use local SIM card because I'm not going to be paying 2/3 because I don't think I'm an idiot enough to do that. Okay. Moving on, a residency and permits. Well, as I told you, it's much easier to get a residency in Georgia. There's three most popular ways. Number one, you register individual entrepreneur account in Georgia and you pay 1% on your online income. Now, not all income gets 1%, but most of it does. If you work for IT company, if you have some sort of online business, there are exclusions here, but not mostly it's not a problem. If you are trading online, you get 1%. In fact, for dividends, if you're living off of your investments, it's 0% tax in Georgia, which is pretty great. It's a bit different in Turkey. Turkey is more complicated. There's way more bureaucracy, and there are different requirements. For example, to register a business, you need to get a permit, and they may deny it. I'll put it this way. Smaller business thrives in Georgia. If you want to open a coffee shop or to have some construction business, and it's a good actually kind of business for Georgia because of this apartment boom currently ongoing here. Turkey has way more people, as I told you. So if you bring in a foundational business already, medium or more in its size, then probably you have a department in business which can sort out all these legalities for you, but it's a different volume. It's not exactly the same, but it is what it is. Georgia is easier, that's the fact. About job market. Well, the job market in Georgia is not designed for you to come and get a job. You can, and by the way, that's one of the ways you can legally stay in Georgia and Turkey, by the way. It's the most popular way to stay in Turkey legally. But the job market is Turkey is much bigger. You do have big international companies there, whatever your skill set is. In Georgia, not really. It's not designed for that, but it is designed for you to bring in the income and to pay very low taxes on it or to build some sort of business here. That is advantage of Georgia. Banking system. Look, in Georgia, you have a lot of banks, but two most popular banks are Bank of Georgia. It's orange with the tiger there. That's the one I chose and I use. And the second biggest, actually, it's probably equally biggest, TBC. You can call it the blue bank. You will notice. One is orange, one is blue. It's equally good. They work no problem. They have very solid applications for your phone. One thing is when you send Swift transfers to Georgia, you need to pay about $35 in commission. Don't know why, but looks like it's the case with all banks in Georgia. But it's very easy to open a bank account, bring in your passport and a local Georgian number. That's important. So in Turkey, it's kind of the same, but you also need a taxpayer number, which you can get. Yeah, it's one extra day. You can get it. You just go to a tax department, or you can do it online. Actually, I got mine in Georgia, also online. I was actually buying something off the internet, and I need to pay a tax in the customs, because if you buy something online from outside of Georgia, and you bring it to the country, if the cost of it is about 300 lari, it's 100 euros. Above that, you need to pay a tax. And for that, you need to get this number. You can do it online, no problem. Same in Turkey, but you do need it for your banking needs as well. And local Turkish number too. And often they may ask for a paper proving where you live, like an address paper. You don't need it in Georgia, you do need it in Turkey. And sometimes they may just decline you. They may ask you to put more money onto your accounts to show your seriousness. And if not, they just don't deal with you. Another thing is, same bank, different branches in Turkey may have different rules and even different commissions. Now, is it weird? Yes, but well, it's just the case. If you talk to people who actually use accounts, you would find conflicting information. So it really depends on branch to branch. It's a bit more consistent in Georgia, I would say in that case. All right, let's move on. I'll give you a verdict. Let's sum up the video. It's possible to compare Turkey and Georgia, but those are apples and oranges. I would say Georgia feels more boutique, more quality over quantity. It is smaller for now. It's definitely growing right now, and the currency is stronger, so there's less commotion in the country. It's very traditional, wine, cheese, food, very relaxed. Turkey is definitely more agile, more alive. Yes, you need to keep in mind the scams, you need to keep in mind a lot of regulations. Turkish lira, the currency is falling constantly. In fact, every time I come to Turkey, it's a different number. I've been to Turkey when it was $70, $3, $1 even was some time ago. And today is about 40 something to a dollar, which is ridiculous. It's for you to decide which country to choose. I still think Georgia wins in this particular comparison big time, specifically for me. But again, I'm not a large business operator who's choosing where to bring the business. However, again, as I said, you will find much better taxes in Georgia. However, it's a smaller market. But on the other hand, maybe you don't need the local market. So it is what it is. Guys, if you have questions, let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.